Next week, we are sharing on Payback. Payback. It's a subject I don't know that I've ever shared on this subject, to be honest with you. Maybe a little bit here or there, but I've never given it a full morning as the topic is standalone by itself. But I have become increasingly aware at this stage in my life that God is the God of payback. Last night we came in, got in at about 7-ish, and I was texting Pastor Tanya. It was about 105 degrees in that apartment because we hadn't had the air going all day. And I came in and turned on the AC, put the dinner in the oven, and all the power went out in the kitchen and in the bedrooms, and the AC, of course, went out. And I asked Deborah, I said, why does this happen? Now, there are 7 days in a week. It only happens on Saturday nights. I mean, I've come in a few times where the power has gone out. Or Sunday morning, one of the people farther down the line has put something down the drain they shouldn't have, and we've got raw sewage coming up in our tub. And on a Sunday morning, really. So I sat this morning and I said, you know, God, I put up with some crazy stuff on Saturday nights. It's hot and we don't have a dinner and I don't know how to make this all work. I said, but you know what? I am thankful that there is a payback coming for the little things we go through and stay consistent and faithful. God is faithful to pay us back. Amen? Amen. All right. Luke chapter 6, verse 22 and verse 23. I want you to listen to this text. It says, excuse me, blessed are you when people hate you, when they exclude you, when they insult you, and reject your name as evil because the Son of Man. Rejoice in that day, leap for joy, because great is your reward in heaven. Yes. Now, if you break this down, Jesus is basically saying, he's telling them, rejoice when people hate on you. That doesn't sound reasonable, does it? If you hate on me, my temptation is to hate back on you. But Jesus says that when folks are hating on you, rejoice. He says when they exclude you or they don't invite you to their party, he says, rejoice. When you're insulted, they cap on you, he says, rejoice then too. And when you are rejected, rejoice. He says, because in 8 short words, he tells us why. He says, you rejoice and you leap for joy because there is great is your reward in heaven. So your eyes are not on what's happening now, but your eyes are on what is going to come, which makes this all very tolerable. Rejoice because your reward now is great in heaven. That's amazing to me. You know, Jesus, I'm re-looking at everything that Jesus taught in the Bible. And I am more amazed now as I look at it with fresh set of eyes. I'm more amazed now at his teaching because it was so weird. Can I just say that? Jesus was a weird teacher. He said some crazy stuff. He's telling folks when everything is against you and things are going wrong your way, and you're being insulted and rejected, and you're standing for me, he says, hey, just go ahead and rejoice and start leaping for joy. I wonder what people would think if somebody came up and insulted me, and I started just leaping for joy, going, woo, 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 give it some more, come on, bring it on. You're just storing up treasure for me in heaven. Woo-hoo, I love it. Just reject me some more. Please reject me. I can deal with this because wait till you see what I get in heaven. Amazing. You see, Jesus was known for teaching crazy stuff. In Luke chapter 2 and verse 47, even in his younger years, it says that all who heard him were astonished at his answers. You see, because Jesus, when he taught, he wasn't thinking earth, he was thinking heaven. And he was teaching from the perspective of heaven, of what's to come, not what is happening now, what is to come. That's where his eyes were always on heaven. And he taught from that paradigm. So I want to give you just a few things regarding God's payback. Number one, let me just say that it is not a gift. What you get in heaven is not a gift. We make that mistake a lot, and when we talk about heaven and rewards, we make the mistake of believing it is some type of a gift. It's not a gift. So let's just clear that up. You see, a gift is something you get that you did not earn. That's a gift. You get it. Salvation, getting to heaven, is a gift. You didn't earn it. God gave it to you as a gift. But a reward is something that you get because you've earned it. Is Derek here? Did he leave? Might be in the bathroom. Well, you see, Derek did something for me yesterday, and I told him I would pay him. He's getting that not as a gift. He's getting that because he earned it. So when we're talking about rewards here, we're talking about something that we are earning now. It's not a gift. I'm going to heaven. That's a gift. But what I get when I get to heaven is my reward. I earned it. I worked for it. I did something for it. Jesus spoke a lot about rewards. I'm going to give you a couple of verses. In Matthew chapter 16 and verse 27, he said, he will reward each according to your works. So whatever you do, there is a reward directly attached to it. He will reward each according to his works. In Matthew 19, verse 21 says, and you will have treasure in heaven. You are actually storing up treasure in heaven. In Luke 14 and verse 14 says, and you will be blessed, although they can't repay you here, you will be repaid at the resurrection of the righteous. Everything we do has a reward attached to it, or not. So let me give you a couple of simple points. There's a starting point. You see, I read a lot of stuff about heaven and people that think they have gone to heaven. And can I just tell you, I don't know how much of it is true, but I do know that a lot of it is just garbage, okay? Everybody look at me and blink. Desiree, you didn't blink. I'm your dad. Blink. Okay. Did anything change? Right? We blink, but nothing changed. You see, I don't believe that when our life ends here, I don't believe that we go through tunnels, but I don't believe that we go through waiting rooms. I don't believe that. I'm sorry. If you do, that's okay. But I don't believe that. Paul said to be absent from the body is to be immediately present with the Lord. It's a blink. I'm blink, and my mortal body is gone, and as quickly as the blink is done, I'm in the very presence of God Almighty. That's the starting point. That's the starting point. We're immediately brought into the presence of the Lord. It's kind of like the law of gravity. You don't see it. You may not believe it, but please don't go up on the roof and jump off, okay? Because you will experience the law of gravity. Our eternal destination is determined by what we believe. Faith, salvation. Our eternal destination is determined by what we believe, but our internal compensation is based on what we do. Did you get that? I'm going to heaven because of what I believe, but I'm compensated strictly by what I do. Somebody illustrated eternity this way, and I'm going to use it. Eternity is like a dot in a line. Think of a dot, a very small dot on a piece of paper over here, and then think of a very long line that goes out this building, goes down Tabor, and continues to go to Rio Vista, and then Stockton, and then and just keeps going, a very long line. Everything in life happens in this dot. Everything that determines my line happens right now in my dot. As small as it is, as insignificant as it might seem, it's a dot on a paper. But once that dot is done, everything that happens in this line for eternity is determined by what I did in my dot. What I did right now. David said that life is like a vapor. Life is like a blade of grass. It comes up one day and it dies the next. Life is quick. It goes by quick. But in it, whether you've got 30 years or 60 years or 70 years, or you live to be 105 and you look like a wrinkled prune, and in it you have the opportunity, and you only have one, you have the opportunity to store up stuff that happens for the rest of that line through eternity. It all happens by what you do in your dot. You'll always have salvation. You'll always have heaven. But what you're rewarded with in heaven is determined by what happens in your dot. I used to say the phrase, I'm praying that I finish this race well. Can I tell you that when I die, it is not the finish of the race, it is only the beginning. Death is not the end, it is the step into the beginning for the rest of eternity. This is nothing compared to what eternity is. Death is actually the starting line. Life really happens after you and I die. Life happens in heaven. We used to see a bumper sticker a lot that says, "He who has the most toys, when he dies, he wins." No, he who has the most toys, when you die, somebody else gets to play with them. It's that simple. Because you start now your real life. You start the real life that God has for you. And it's not determined on what you enjoyed on earth. That has nothing to do with it at all. There's nothing wrong with being blessed. There's nothing wrong with having nice things. But if you think that's what life is all about, you are sadly mistaken. And there is going to come a day, you can mark my words, there is going to come a day where you will see the reality of that. I'd rather be poor as dirt, laying up treasure in heaven, than to be a Donald Trump and find out when my dot ended there was nothing for me in heaven. Looking at the very people maybe I made fun of in life who have mansions and wealth untold in heaven. And what I had here on earth, I didn't get to bring with me. Yeah, I'm in heaven, but I'm poor as dirt in heaven. Sorry, did I say that? Matthew chapter 6, verse 1 through verse 4. Second thing I want to give you is, I just put in my notes, don't give it to me now. Don't give it to me now. Chapter 6, verse 1 through verse 4. Be careful not to do your acts of righteousness before men, to be seen by them. If you do, you will have no reward from your Father in heaven. Well, that's pretty heavy. I think Jesus is telling it real. Don't do what you do to get a pat on the back here. Because if you get a pat on your back here, you're not going to get one in heaven. If you do, you will have no reward from your Father in heaven. So when you give to the needy, do not announce it with trumpets, as the hypocrites do in the synagogue and on the streets, to be honored by men. I tell you the truth, they have received their reward in full. But when you give to the needy, do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing, so that your giving may be in secret. Then your Father, who sees what you have done in secret, He will reward you. Luke chapter 14. Luke chapter 14, and we're going to look at verse 12 through verse 14. Luke 14, verse 12 through verse 14. You see, if I said to you, I'm going to give you a box of jelly beans now, or you can wait and later I'll give you the jelly bean factory, which do you think is better? I'll take the factory. That's what Jesus is saying. If you do what you do to be rewarded now, it's okay. If that's what you want, it's okay. Take the pat on the back. Get the photo op. You do those things so that people will think you're really a cool guy. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with it. But don't kid yourself. He said, but I won't reward you later. You took the reward now, as small as it was or as big as you thought it was. It's nothing compared to what I will reward you with. So go ahead, take the box of jelly beans, eat them one by one, and enjoy every one of them, because when you get to heaven, that's all there was. He has nothing else for you. Luke chapter 14. Then Jesus said to his host, Jesus is at a dinner party thrown by a rich man. Jesus said to his host, when you give a luncheon or a dinner, do not invite your friends, your brothers or your relatives or your rich neighbors. If you do, they may invite you back, so you will be repaid. But when you give a banquet, invite the poor, the crippled, the lame, the blind, and you will be blessed. Although they cannot repay you, you will be repaid at the resurrection of the righteous. Okay. That is just powerful to me. So if I'm going to invite Reggie to lunch today, I have to determine, Reggie's my friend, but if I invite him to lunch, will he pay me back next week? And if he does, I just got my reward. So there's nothing wrong with having lunch with him. I'll enjoy it, but there's no payback. I ain't taking you to lunch. I'm going to go over here and find somebody that's broke, that I know can't pay me back. And maybe they don't have a home to invite me to or food in the refrigerator. I'm going to find that guy, because when I take him to lunch or her to lunch, they're not going to pay me back. I'd rather get it later than now. Where are our priorities? We want to do for the guys that we know can do back for us. We want to give so it can be given back to us. I'll invite you, you invite me, we'll all have a good time. Great, if that's really what you want. But there's something burning in me that I want something more. So I'm going to go find the guy at the homeless camp and say, you want to go have a hamburger? Yeah. Get in my car, let's go have lunch. Because I know you can't buy me one. But Jesus said that I will repay you. And I think he's going to buy me a pretty big hamburger when I think in heaven they do supersize me stuff. That's where I want to be repaid. See, I think sometimes we get our priorities mixed up. Why? Because we're not thinking heaven the way Jesus was. we're thinking, what's in it for me here? Jesus never concerned himself with what's in it for me here. It was always what's in it for me there. What's in it for me there? I've begun to analyze everything I do. Everything I do. From preaching a sermon, to praying for somebody, to studying, to reading, everything I do. But with the question of, why do I do it? Why do I do it? If you come up to me today and say, a nice message, I was really touched, well, that's okay. But I would rather not get that. Because I'm not doing it for that. I don't want that. I want Jesus to see what I've done. Because he's going, I'm going to put some more money in Scott's bank account up here because of what he went through to spend that 40 minutes teaching, because he was doing it for me. He was trying to express my will, my desire, my design. He wasn't in it for himself. He did it all for me. All the hours of studying and preparation and spending his Saturday putting it in an iPad. He did all of that for me. I watched every 5 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour. I kept track of how much time he sacrificed. He didn't go out to restaurant. He didn't even have his hobby. He spent that week doing this for me. And I'm going to pay that boy back. So if you pat me on the back, okay, thank you. I received that, but I'm not doing it for that. I'm doing it for what he sees and what he keeps record of. That's what I'm doing it for. Why do you do what you do? Why do we serve in the kitchen? Why do we clean up around the church? Why do we mow the grass? Why do we do what we do? Are we doing it for him? Or are we doing it because I have to do it, I was told to do it, I feel obligated to do it, and I do it resentfully? Because if that's the case, you just lost your reward. All right, let me give you another point. I want to talk about what are rewards. In Luke chapter 6, verse 23, Jesus says, "Rejoice in that day and leap for joy, because great is your reward in heaven." The word here in the Greek is mistos, and it is the word for wages. God is giving you your wages. You have worked for something, and God is giving you your wages. It is the same word that Paul used when he said the laborer is worthy of his wages. It is the same word. Now remember the dinner story that we just read, where Jesus said, don't invite your friends and don't invite the people that can pay you back. Go out and find somebody that can't, because then you will get your reward, right? You remember that? Okay. Well, the word that is used there, I can't even pronounce it, but it's spelled A-P-O-D-I-D-M-A-I. Dr. John can pronounce it. He'll tell you later, but I can't pronounce it. But that word in the Greek simply means to give it back. To give it back. So I get wages and I get it back. So let me tell you, when you combine those two words, what Jesus is saying, that whatever you do, God will pay you back. So whatever money you spent on the dinner, God is going to pay you back personally. Whatever it cost you, He has kept a record of it, and He is going to pay you back. And I believe with interest. In fact, Solomon said in Proverbs, when you give money to the poor, you have lent it to God, and He'll pay you back. So if I go to somebody on the street and I give them a dollar bill, God writes down that I gave them a dollar bill, and God will repay me. Interesting, huh? You see, we think we just gave it away and it's gone. No. The Bible says that God will repay you. Matthew 9 and verse 41 says, "Truly, I tell you, if anyone gives a cup of water in my name, you belong to the Messiah, will certainly not lose his reward. If anyone gives a cup of water in my name because you belong to the Messiah, you will certainly not lose your reward. That's a cup of water. Oh, please, we're not talking money. A cup of water? Really, Jesus? Honestly? You mean if I go up and offer somebody that looks thirsty a bottle of water, you'll reward me for that too? It breaks it down to the very simplest of things. Oh, if I give up my seat, you'll reward me for that? Oh, if I'm on the BART and I see a lady there with groceries and all the seats are taken, but I step up and say, here, you can sit here and I'll stand, you'll reward me for that? That's amazing. Everything you do, everything has something in heaven attached to it. Either a reward or no reward. Pastor John, every time we have lunch, he stacks up rewards like nobody I've ever seen. When we go to leave, he's so crazy, he'll go in the kitchen and thank the cook, and thank the waitress, and thank the dishwasher, and thank the owner. And I'm standing at the door going, come on, we got to go. Stop thanking people. He thanks everybody. I was thinking about it yesterday. I said, I need to start thanking people like Pastor John. Maybe I'll have some rewards for that too. He's stacking up rewards over a taco. Most people would just walk out. No, he's going to stop his day to go find the people that serve because everybody else ignores them. And he's going to go up and say, thank you. I really like being here. It's good to see you again. Oh, it's you again. I remember you from the last time we were here. Oh, you look so nice. Reward, cha-ching, reward, cha-ching, reward, cha-ching, reward, cha-ching. And over lunch, he stacked up a bank account. You're so rich, you should buy my lunch next week. Never mind. Last point. It all happens at the Bema. When Paul was dragged before Gallio, the magistrate in Corinth, to hear his case, the platform that he sat on was called the Bema, B-E-M-A in the Greek. Bema simply means judgment seat. 2 Corinthians chapter 5 and verse 10 says, For we all must appear before the judgment seat of Christ. Why Christ? Why Christ? Because Jesus said that God isn't going to judge anybody, that God has given the right to judge to Jesus. So we will stand before the judgment seat of Christ so that each of us may receive what is due us for the things done while in the body, whether good or bad. Romans goes on to tell us about the judgment seat of Christ, where Paul says that when we die, we will appear before the judgment seat of Christ. You and I are both going to stand there at the Bema. 1 Corinthians chapter 3, Paul goes on to say that when we go before the judgment seat of Christ, he is going to take what we have done and he is going to try it by fire to see whether it stands up as gold or whether it is burned as hay, wood, and stone. Now, you might ask yourself, why would he do that? Can't you tell what is good and bad just based on face value? No. So the next question is then God, what are you using as your ruler to measure what is good and bad? What is it that you use to measure? Because I don't want to spend my time doing things that I think are good, that looks good, but the wrong measuring stick, and I get to heaven and find out you use a different one, and everything I've done is now burned up. So what is it? How do you measure in order to reward? I'm going to give you just a couple. One, are you doing it for Jesus? Because Jesus says that when you do things in my name, I will reward you. So why are you doing it? What is the motivation? Are you doing it for Jesus? The second thing is deep down, what is motivating you? Is it recognition for yourself? Are you doing it for what you may or may not get out of it, regardless of how good it looks? You see, Jesus told him another parable where he said that there were those that stood before him at the bema, at the judgment seat. And they said, Lord, 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 wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. We have prophesied in your name. We have healed in your name. We have done miracles in your name. And then he says to them, depart from me, I never knew you. I don't know about you, but that blows my mind. That just sends me into orbit someplace like I don't want to go. Well, what do you mean? I prophesied in your name. I had a word from God for people in your name. If I had a word from God, if I could read your mail, if I could point at you and tell you what your phone number was and your address, and then give you a word from God, and you would think that I was a great prophet, right? How good would that be? Y'all would be spellbound. You'd be thinking, do it to me, do it to me. So, Jesus, I had a word from you for people. I had enough faith in you that when I prayed for sick people, they recovered. I even did a miracle or two. How spiritual is that? But Jesus says in this parable, depart from me, I never knew you. So it wasn't what I did, it's all in what motivated me to do it. There are a lot of great ministries and people doing a lot of great stuff, but the motivation is wrong. And when they stand before God, God isn't going to recognize anything that they have done because the motivation is wrong. Third, is it centered in love? Is it centered in love? You know, you can do things and not have an ounce of love behind it. In fact, Paul said it this way. Paul says, if you give all that you possess to the poor. That means that if I went home and took everything I owned and boxed it up and went down to the homeless place where there are a lot of people living, and I just gave it to everybody, and then Deborah and I went to the bank and drew every dime we had out and any money I had in my pocket, and we gave it all to the homeless people. And then Paul says, and if I give my body to hardship that I may boast, but I do not have love, I have gained absolutely nothing. There is no reward. One translation says, and I give my body to be burned. Well, I've yet to do that. But let's say I did. Y'all would mark me as a martyr. But if I didn't do it out of love, Paul said, I gained nothing from it. It was a loss. So if that's the case, I'd do better to go back to that homeless camp and get all my stuff back. Because I didn't gain anything from it in heaven. Isn't that powerful? That just rocks my world. I don't know about you, but it does something inside of me. You know, I was thinking, and I said something to somebody the other day. I'm going to leave you You know, when you preach, you're not supposed to leave everybody with a depressing thought. But I'm going to leave you with one. So get ready to be depressed, okay? All right. This is my great-grandfather's pocket watch. I don't know how valuable it is. It used to work. I used to carry it. It had a nice chain and everything. But here's the depressing thought. What are you going to be remembered by? What will you be remembered by? I want to depress you. Nothing. Your children will remember you, and your grandchildren might remember you. But beyond that, you are forgotten. This is my great-grandfather's watch. I couldn't tell you a thing about it. He comes from my Portuguese side of the family, the Quizambra side. I couldn't tell you what he acted like, what he looked like, what he thought like. I couldn't tell you if he was smart or not smart. All I know is this watch he carried, and he hung this watch over his bed headboard so that he knew what time to wake up in the morning. That's all I know of him. He's nothing more than a name. I asked somebody the other day, I said, let's go back to one of the greatest presidents of the United States. Let's go back to Abraham Lincoln. What do you know about Abraham Lincoln? Well, first thing that comes to mind is he was the one who dissolved slavery in this country. Beyond that, what do you know about him? How tall was he? What was his favorite food? How old was he when he died? Some of you might know that through history, but most of us don't. What was his wife like? What was his kids like? The truth is, we know nothing about him. So when I die, my kids will remember me. My grandchildren will remember me. Samaya will always say, don't put your hands on the wall. She'll remember me. But beyond that, will I be remembered? No. No. What I do here in my dot, the importance of it isn't a legacy or remembering me, because most of us don't even remember President Ronald Reagan. And he was the president of the United States. You probably don't know anything about him except that he lived in California and he was an actor. What I do in my dot has nothing to do with my life here. There is no legacy. It's a pocket watch. But it has everything to do with this line that never, ever, ever, ever stops. So my conclusion is to pull you back out of depression. You're still thinking about the watch, aren't you? Don't build a legacy for yourself. Build your legacy for heaven. Use your time wisely here, because you only have one life. Use it right. Build treasure in heaven, where Jesus said, I'm keeping an account and I will